Welcome to TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans by wrestling fans on the web today. I'm John. That's my cohort and commentary, Ashton. And this is our Lucha Underground review. And I gotta say, another really fun episode of Lucha Underground. Amazing cinematics, particularly the beginning one and the ending one, both of which I'm sure we'll talk about at a respectable length when we get to them. The matches, well, I mean, we had three fairly quick matches for different reasons, some sensical, others more tragic, but a main event that I think really made both guys look absolutely terrific with huge narrative implications. Again, we'll be sure to unpack all of it, and we even laid a little bit of groundwork for next week because we've got two matches on tap that we know about. So I'd say this is a very productive episode of Lucha Underground. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Partner, what'd you think of it?
Absolutely. I mean, you say productive, and that really is kind of the best word to describe it because really we've got so much to unpack tonight. I mean, yeah, like we got 4 matches technically, but really it was just like 3.5 matches because the third match of the night was really just kind of like a prequel to the main event of the night. But really, the matches were the underscore of this show. Show was the cinematics. It was the storytelling, and that right there is the formula, my favorite formula for an amazing episode of Lucha Underground.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I would show somebody this episode of Lucha Underground to really show once again, this is where Lucha Underground to me is at its best, is telling stories. Not saying the in-ring product isn't good, because Lord knows that's the furthest thing from the truth. The in-ring product is excellent. But where they really excel, where they really tantalize and scintillate the senses, is with how they tell stories. You know, they just enrapture you with the way they can weave a narrative together and make characters compelling, or even give characters that you would have brushed off. Like there's a cinematic that happens tonight with a character that we thought, oh, we might go one way and he still might go that way, but really pretty forgettable all the same. But then they give him that little bit of intrigue and they're like, are they going to do something with him? And that's what I love. To me, and we kind of had this conversation on a past Lucha Underground TWitWoW, and I'm going to be careful with my words here because I don't want to get into a needless debate when this episode was so hot. Yes, Lucha Underground does have its jobbers, but what I love about that is even the people that you're like, oh, they really haven't won a match, they really haven't done anything, that doesn't occlude them from having depth. That doesn't occlude them. That doesn't bar them from having depth to their personality, having nuance in a character, having motivations, because at the end of the day, whether you're a jobber or a headliner, we're all human. And we all experience these human responses and difficulties and everything, and that's what Lucha Underground taps into so freaking well. Just from a narrative standpoint, again, this is the big show in town. You know, this is the big game in town to me, and episodes like this only further that notion. So, excellent hour of television tonight.
Yeah, as always, great hour of television. Do you want to get right into our review, by the way?
Absolutely. Let us get right into our Lucha Underground review. And partner, this first segment is all you. Walk us through it.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing we see is sort of I don't know if it's like a Japanese logo or some kind of like, I don't know. It was like a circular thing with dashes, and it's hard to explain, but I recognized it from the Pentagon Vampiro vignettes where Vampiro was breaking Pentagon after Pentagon had his back broken by Matanza. I remember it from that. So it's the same sort of temple that Vampiro, I don't even want to say temple because that's, you know, it's like the temple. There's only one temple, but like Vampiro's shack where he trained Pentagon and broke Pentagon. And now we see Puma, and Vampiro, you know, he instructs Puma to rise and pledge your allegiance to your new master, and Puma does. He completely goes along with it, and he is Vampiro's new student.
Yes. Now, look, dude, between the two of us, I mean, you know I respect and I love Puma to death. You know, this isn't a case of, oh, Johnny Scumbag. You know, I do love him, but I know you're the really big fan of Puma between the two of us. What did you think? I mean, really, I know we'll have to contain it for now within this one segment, but really of the whole night that he had between this and what he did later. Are you really into this, him being under Vampiro's kind of tutelage? How are you feeling about it now that we're getting a little bit of taste of what's to come?
Really intrigued by it. I really want to know where they go with this. It seems like, based on just what we saw tonight, it seems like he's definitely more violent. He's more aggressive. So if that means that we're going to get a more violent, aggressive Puma versus a pissed off MIl Muertes, I am all for that, brother.
And I love it too, because it just, and here's the thing, right? This is what I love about Lucha Underground, because Puma already, as he was a great character, right? I mean, great moveset, was able to really emote through the mask. Like, I hadn't nearly tired of him yet. I know you hadn't either. Neither had the Believers. And yet they still do this nuance with him. They still do this progression with him of, okay, you know, we have you start out as the inaugural Lucha Underground champion and you're feeling yourself and you're on a high, but he really is a man now that's lost himself. And I love it about Lucha Underground because you can tell that Puma is the star. Like, I think I've even seen Ray in interviews and stuff say, like, oh, you know, he's the future of this business, is Ricochet, you know, as Prince Puma. Like, he's just the complete package. And he really is, to me, even with what he's doing, the face of Lucha Underground. But just being the face doesn't mean you have to stagnate. I love that they have the balls to really put their character on the table and say, yeah, he's kind of our main guy, but this is what we're doing with him. It doesn't mean that he can't be as complex or go through hard times like anybody else. And in fact, the way he responds to them, that's what makes him different from everybody else, because he's embraced the darkness here. I love that. I love that they're not being conservative and it's like, no, Puma, you just keep doing your thing. They're willing to rattle the cage. They're willing to shake things up. And I really admire them for that. It really shouldn't be something worthy of admiration. It should be commonplace in this industry, but it's not, which is exactly why I'm making such a big deal out of it. I love that they're doing this with Puma.
Yeah, it's great. So the whole thing with Puma and Vampiro is really interesting. Puma, man, I'm really curious if he's going to change anything up. And like you were saying, it's something that you really do have to appreciate when something that works, change it before it gets stale. Whereas with WWE, and I am going to specifically call it WWE for this because about it, they run, like, if they find something that's good, they run it into the ground. Like, they will not let something breathe. They will not give something an opportunity to, you know, kind of flourish in sort of a sparse role. They find something that they think works and they run it until it doesn't work anymore. And then they keep running it even more until it gets drilled into their heads that it really just isn't ever going to work again. And maybe then, if the performer is lucky, they'll still find a way to change it. Whereas with Lucha Underground, they made a change before something got stale. Like, it really is a matter of being ahead of the curve. And it's kind of, you know, I guess I can kind of relate it back to the NFL too, because there are a lot of teams that'll grab a guy and he'll be good for them for a while, but then he'll stop playing well and they'll still keep him around because he was good. Maybe he can go back to being good, but it never happens. And then, you know, 5 years down the line, they realize that they've got a bad player, and they've had a bad player for the last 3 or 4 years. But then you look at teams like the Patriots, the Steelers, and the Ravens, teams that consistently win a lot every year. Those are the teams that are letting guys go, and everyone's saying, oh, why would you let that guy go? He's really good. But then he signs to a different team and doesn't play as well because they realize that this guy is never necessarily going to be as good as he was for us in the past. So why would we continue to pay him like he is going to be? That's kind of what Lucha Underground is doing, except to a less extreme degree here with Puma. Puma has been amazing since day one. At the same time, he lost to Ray, and then he kind of like toiled a little bit. So rather than trying to just shove the exact same Puma that we're used to, and they're changing his character and giving us something refreshing with him, and I love it.
And, you know, I can't really relate to the NFL parallel you made, but just to touch on the WWE parallel you made a few moments ago, I don't want to stay too long on it because I know this is our Lucha Underground review. that's what terrifies me so much about Braun Strowman currently. Because when you and I have been talking, I've been saying, like, Braun Strowman is Raw for me now. I can't wait to see what he does. I can't wait to see what segments he takes a part of. But I know that if WWE really catches wind of that, they'll beat it into the ground, and then he'll lose whatever allure that he's currently possessing right now. And he's so good, I don't want to see that happen to him. But in Lucha Underground, I love how they know how to maximize the utility of all their players. Another good case in point, Rey Mysterio. Now, I'm going to be honest. I have all the respect in the world for Rey, but as a character, not really so interesting traditionally. But here with Lucha Underground, they not only give him kind of like this mentor persona because of all of his years of experience and because of his status in Mexico. The strength of that is the supporting players are what make Rey Mysterio so interesting because, oh, he has Azteca under his wing, but oh, now Azteca's going rogue and saying your days of telling me what to do are over. That makes Rey to me an interesting character because that's an obstacle for him to overcome. The same way with Puma, you know, again, he could have just been, you know, the man continuing to have great matches and being that kind of, you know, white knight of Lucha Underground, oh, last of his tribe, symbolic of all these good things. But no, he has fallen prey to the darkness because life got hard for him. And sometimes when life gets hard for people, we don't have the best responses. I find something so incredibly human in this storyline, which is amazing because it's so bizarre in the sense of like when you look at it from a mythological standpoint, you've got Vampiro and resurrections and all that stuff, but there's something very vulnerable and very human at the core of all of it, and that's what I find so attractive because it is Prince Puma, a guy that, you know, on his worst day I would still bet, you know, with being able to beat anybody in that temple, and yet he feels like without guidance he is lost. And you know, now he's got this, and I can't wait for the possibilities. I mentioned to you in live reactions, what is Pentagon Dark feeling as he's healing 2 broken arms? You know, like, is he going to cross paths with Puma Dark down the road? Is Johnny Mundo? I told you, I want Johnny Mundo versus Puma Dark. I think that would be fucking incredible. So you open up a plethora of possibilities, and the funny thing is, those possibilities, they become new again because of this. What's old is new again. Yes, we've seen Puma versus Johnny Mundo, but we haven't seen this Puma versus Johnny Mundo. And already I feel like that reinvigorates that. Same way again, Puma versus Pentagon Dark. I just love that they really haven't allowed him to become tired. And yeah, I love this opening cinematic. And just, I do give myself to you. And oh man. And Vampiro, who is mainly just a commentator, but also now with this other like thing that he's been doing for a while, keeps being interesting. I was so scared when they were bringing him more into the Lucha version originally with Pentagon, but man, has it been one of the best investments they've made. I really ate my crow on that one because I'm like, oh, are you sure you want to do this? He's so old. He's so this. He's worked out tremendously for them. Just great.
For sure. Yeah, that I can definitely agree with you on that. It's pretty, and that was the thing too, was we were very apprehensive when they first brought Vamp into a wrestling related storyline because it was like, oh, well, you know, we really aren't big fans of commentators specifically being involved because it's like their job is to, you know, not be a part of the story. It's to tell the story.
Right.
But this has worked out so well. Like Pentagon Vampiro from Ultima Lucha 1 was match of the year candidate, and Vamp hasn't wrestled since then. He hasn't gotten in the ring since then. But at the same time, he still took a beating from Pentagon at Ultima Lucha Dos Part 3, and he's still been a prominent part in storylines really ever since season 1. And it's been great storylines, not just like him being there for the sake of being there, but he's been vital. And like he even had his own freaking comic book that was awesome. I loved that edition of the comic.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I've really enjoyed Vampiro's involvement, even if we were very apprehensive about it at first. It's great that he has, and that his character have loaned themselves so much to the narrative that is Lucha Underground.
Absolutely. I completely agree. I really have nothing to add to this discussion, but already knowing that just one cinematic with Dark Puma and Vampiro generating this much discussion, I mean, and then we get to what they would do just a little bit later, which we'll get to in a moment. Just so much to be mined here, and I can't wait for Lucha Underground to do all of that and then some.
Yeah. All right. So up next, then, we had our first match of the night, Jeremiah Crane versus MIl Muertes. This was honestly not even that long of a match. I want to say it was probably only like 6 or 7 minutes. Jeremiah started things off with a boot immediately on Muertes, but Muertes just ate it. Another boot, Muertes ate that, and eventually it really didn't even take long. Muertes took complete control of the match. Really did kind of dominate Jeremiah. Maybe 7 minutes or 6 or 7 minutes is overestimating how long this match was, because it really did feel like MIl, once he took control, he didn't relent it. And at one point, he leaned Jeremiah up against the ropes for Katrina to do like an "you're gross, so I'm not going to actually touch your face with my tongue" version of the lick of death, where she licked her finger and dragged that down Jeremiah's face. And then MIl hit him with the flat, or went to hit him with the flatliner, but we had interference from Dark Puma.
Yeah, Dark Puma. And what did he have? What did he use as a weapon? Because I know he clogged MIl Muertes in
A
the
Singapore
face.
cane.
A Singapore cane, that's right. Yeah, he laid Muertes out with that, and then Crane gets a pump kick and he pins MIl Muertes. So Jeremiah Crane, look, I've always said a win is a win is a win is a win. And whether you like how Jeremiah Crane did it or not, he beat MIl Muertes, which I still feel like in season 3 is a huge freaking deal with how they protect Muertes, and they protected him again here because he only beat Muertes. I mean, he had that match soundly in hand. It wasn't until Puma made his presence felt that the tide turned. So yeah, Crane gets the win, which only furthers the intrigue of, remember what he told Katrina, once I'm done with MIl Muertes, I'm going to have you all to myself. I don't know if he quite accomplished that goal, because I'd hardly call his win dominant by any means, but he's not done with her now, especially now that he feels emboldened by this win, because, now I've beaten your puppet. Now I'm just going to keep, antagonizing you until I get what I want, whatever that is. And then Puma goes back on the attack. I mean, what did you think about what Puma did here?
It was just brutal. I will say, there were a lot more unprotected chair shots to the head than I'd ever like to see in a wrestling promotion tonight. But trying to kind of mentally compartmentalize and set that aside, I still thought that this beatdown was ridiculously. It was one of those things where like it made you cringe, but not in like an "oh, that's pathetic" or "oh, that's whatever" kind of way, but more along the lines of like, "oh my god, I didn't know Puma was capable of this."
Yeah, and it's so great to see. Dude, I think he will, because again, I just think Ricochet is that brilliant of a performer. Like we've got such, and just really the industry as a whole, especially in Lucha Underground, such a talented crop of performers, male and female, and Ricochet I think is a top of the class, just so good. So I'd have to imagine he's going to change his in-ring style as Dark Puma, going forward. Maybe he'll keep the 630, because it really is like, it's a move that does look beautiful, yes, and gets a pop, but it really is devastating. So I wouldn't blame him if he kept it. But we'll have to see how far the changes go. But yeah, I loved it. I loved that he just brutalized Muertes with that cane. And yeah, really just showing no fear, not steal a line for Pentagon Dark. But yeah, Puma really did not give a shit. He came in, beat the shit out of Muertes, he made his point, and then he left. So I really enjoyed this. And I love that it was just a morsel too. It really wasn't overdone between the cinematic and the beatdown. Nothing was excessive. Nothing was overexposed. Nothing felt really oversaturated to me. I'm left wanting so much more from Dark Puma now. Like, I can't wait for his first match under the control of Vampiro now. I think it's going to be amazing.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, definitely. And that's the thing too, is we've seen Puma, but have we seen Dark Puma? Because obviously we haven't seen the Dark Puma character, but how is he going to change? Like, I was thinking maybe he'll even use the Benadryller as a finisher now, since that's more of like a brutal strike finisher that kind of fits a heel a little bit better.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, all you'd have to do, in my mind, is, just build it up maybe in a few matches, because it already looked like a match ender just by how, again, violent it looked and everything, and effective. But, you get some 3 counts off it, I can immediately buy it.
You know what, though? At the
Absolutely.
same time, there are people, and I know we have in our people that comments on a lot of our videos, someone that we're friends with on Facebook, Luna Corva, aka Shea Holm. His philosophy is there is no reason for somebody to change what works for them just because they're a heel now. That's kind of what his argument was for Mundo still using the end of the world. It's like, you know, the whole reason that you're a heel is because you're willing to do anything to win, but why would you throw away something that you've won so many matches in the past with just
Right.
because you don't want the crowd to cheer for you anymore? Like, that's,
Right.
you know, it's kind of, it goes against progress. So either way, it's just the interesting thing isn't necessarily the interesting thing is the character. And right now, the character has got me very intrigued, and I'm right there with you. I can't wait to see him in his first match as the Dark Puma. It's going to be awesome. So let's move on. Up next, I believe, was another cinematic. We had Ricky Mandel, really weird, showing up in the back to congratulate Sexy Star on being the first female Lucha Underground champion, and that it's all right that she lost to Mundo as many times as she did because he's the best.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to see, you know, the load being carried off my shoulders. They were starting to hurt a little bit. I thought I was going to need a consultation from Cliff, you know, from carrying the Johnny Mundo fandom for so long. I mean, granted, I'm 10 times healthier and more, or handsomer, healthier, and more intelligent than Ricky Mandel, I'm sure. But it's nice to see that he's joining in and trying to help.
I mean, even if you can take like 3% of the load off your back, that's still you're down to 97%.
Absolutely, which my incredibly broad shoulders can more than handle. But on a really serious note, I like this, and no, not just for the reasons of, oh, you know, Johnny Mundo mentioned, though. Yes, I did nerd out a little, because as you and I were discussing in live reactions, I'm wondering if I just didn't recognize that it was Mandel because of the bandana and sunglasses. I wonder if he's going to be the fifth guy in Worldwide Underground because he's such a big Johnny Mundo fan.
Yeah.
And really, though, let me say this. If that is, because I was convinced from the trailer, like, oh, it's an outside talent coming in, which, of course, as well, I was totally fine with. But why I love this, again, it goes back to my original sentiment at the start of the program. Yes, we have people that are just going to lose matches or be fodder for another person like any other wrestling promotion, but that doesn't mean that they can't elevate. Like, again, and this is just me being honest, I don't want to be overly negative for anybody, it's just how I feel. I feel like a lot in the WWE, if somebody's a jobber, like, there really isn't much chance for them to have any kind of upward mobility. But in Lucha Underground, we know that to be patently false. I mean, look at Famous B. Season 1, yeah, he was a guy that lost a lot, looked really good in an Aztec Medallion Battle Royal, but still lost that. And then Season 2 comes around, you know, and he's doing the whole 4-2-3 get fame. And then carrying into Season 3, you know, he's still doing that manager gimmick, and it's wonderful. And now Ricky Mandel the same way. He was virtually a nobody in Season 1. Was it this season or Season 2 where we had the photo segment? Because I know that was this, and then, you know, Season 2, kind of a drop-off again. But now Season 3 comes back in the fold. Wow, Dario! Those really cool photos. And, you know, we don't know if they're going to play into anything, because I find it funny that he collects those creepy photos. And even though Sexy Star's been tormented by this spider prior to that, he presents Sexy Star with a gift he found in catering with the spider in it. And we'll get to Sexy's reaction to that a little bit later in the show. But I love now that, like, oh, he's talking about Johnny Mundo and he's interacting with Sexy. And when he's like, oh, Johnny Mundo's the best and it's okay that he's beating you a bunch of times, the look she had on her face, like, the fuck is this guy saying to me right now? I about died. I thought it was hilarious. So if Ricky's going to be the fifth guy in Worldwide Underground, I'm cool with it. I'm happy for the guy. It does my heart so much good to know that a guy could start at the bottom of Lucha Underground and end up as part of, like, a greater faction or as a manager, or maybe they start getting wins. It's nice to see that upward mobility is an actual thing, and downward mobility as well. You know, it works both ways. And that's the kind of wrestling I like. You know, I just think that's really cool. So I really enjoyed this cinematic.
I'm going to send you in the Google Hangouts chat, I'm going to just send you a link to an image that has the 5 members from the trailer of Lucha of Worldwide Underground in it. It really does look like Ricky Mandel on the far right. I'm pretty sure that actually is him.
Yeah, and you know what? It's a good freaking fit. And you know what, dude? I don't want to jump the gun. Because I know we haven't even gotten to that yet, but I will just say now, we know next week it was announced, right? The Mac is going to get his title match against Johnny Mundo, which I can't fucking wait for him and I have my Johnny Mundo shirt all prepared for that. But, I mean, do you think Ricky Mandel might interfere in that match and help Mundo retain? And that's how he gets an in with Worldwide Underground.
Oh, that would be ridiculously cool. I don't know. It's definitely possible, and that would be super funny and awesome. And I would be more than happy for that to be how Mundo retains against the Mac.
Hey, you know me, brother. You know I have no pride. As long as he retains, period. I don't care how he does it.
Of
So,
course.
Ricky Mandel, give all the age you want, brother. But as far as sexy goes, I'm still into this storyline. Do you have any like new feelings about it, given this development? You know, seeing the spider yet again? Anything you want to share
I'm
about
telling
that?
you, man, I just want to know who it is because it's clearly not Mariposa, even though we would find out later on in the night that Sexy Star still thinks it is Mariposa. It's clearly not her, though, because arachnids and moths are not the same thing. And arachnids are not insects, and moths are not arachnids. They're not the same thing. Just because you call them both bugs doesn't mean that they're the same thing.
Well, you're going to have to tell Sexy Star that, brother, because, I mean, I've already got the message, and I know our listeners already got the message.
Yeah.
Because, you know.
You're so ignorant about animals. Learn zoology.
Yeah, I mean, you can't be a star unless you at least have some kind of aptitude when it comes to animals. Jesus.
Yeah.
But though I will say, I guess because I'll admit that I was a bit annoyed that she still thought it was Mariposa. But I guess my only rationale would be she's clearly very angry about this and clearly very frazzled about this. And when you're feeling emotional or angry about something like, oh, is somebody stalking me or screwing with me or whatever, you don't always tend to think rationally. And clearly Sexy isn't in a rational space given everything that she's gone through the last few weeks. So hopefully, though, next week, because that was another thing that got announced, we will be getting Mariposa and Sexy Star, which that was touched on in a segment later. Hopefully, however that match goes, Sexy wakes up and she's like, oh, wait a minute. Mariposa has no relation to spiders. That's what we've been trying to tell you. But, yeah, good cinematic nonetheless. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. So, Sexy Star, still ignorant about Animal Kingdom. Doesn't matter. Let's move on. It's funny that you brought up how, people who were considered jobbers in season 1 have kind of made a comeback because our next segment involves Famous B, who likes to turn jobbers into robbers.
Absolutely. And he was looking to recruit Texano of all people. Yeah. Partner, I was having some trouble with my Fubo, but essentially didn't Famous B tell Texano, look, you're great and everything, but Cage gets the cheers, but I could help you get famous. And of course, Brenda was kind of reiterating what Famous B was saying, famous. And they both did the 4-2-3, get fame. And
yeah, basically Texano isn't over and Famous B wants to help him to fix that, is what it comes down to.
I love that he called him out on that. Like, you are not over. I can help you. Like,
dude,
just let me help
the best
you.
part about it though is that like I feel like the biggest complaint about Lucha Underground this season I'm so bored with Texano, and why would they ruin Cage by putting him in this series with Texano and all that stuff? And it's like they're straight up acknowledging like we know that you don't like Texano, and that's kind of the point.
Yeah, I love it. I love it so much. And let me tell you, with what Texano did later, I'm not saying I'm a fan of his now, but I don't think he's ever been better than he was tonight between this cinematic and what he would do later with Cage. So
yeah,
I was totally cool with that. And yeah, I love the Famous B character. I'm loving everything. God, this show is so good. But yeah, I mean, Texano didn't really give an affirmative yes, nor did he really turn them down. So, and given
he did threaten Famous B's life a couple times. Like, Famous B would be like, you should call 423 get fame and I'll make you famous. And Texano was like, how about if I make you famous by killing you? He didn't actually say killing you, but it was definitely implied. Grabbed him by the tie and everything. Like, yeah, Texano was really violent, but at the end, he seemed kind of not so much swayed so much as it was more along the lines of like, I don't know, like calmed down and actually considering the offer because like I think the real like what sealed the deal was like Brenda being like call me and like being like flirty with him. So Texano might just have a crush on Brenda and go along with this for her.
Maybe. I mean, here's my thing, dude, because again, I know we'll get more in depth with the stuff that happened later with the best of 5 series, but I just want to kind of press pause on that for a second and kind of discuss with you. First of all, I love that Famous B is still thinking about expanding. I love that he's not content with just the one client of Dr. Wagner Jr. He really does see what he does, again, making people famous. That's his business. And a business needs more than one client, I think, to really thrive. So I love Famous B's mindset. Do you think that Famous B and that whole thing could really make Texano interesting or make him a more integral part of the
absolutely.
universe? Yeah. I mean, what could you really see them doing together? Like, what do you see as the potential of this pairing? Because I could see them going.
I mean, well, really, what do a manager and a client ever do together? He would be out there and help him win matches, is what it really comes down to.
Right. I mean, I just don't know. I'm still thinking, are Dr. Wagner Jr., Texano, and maybe they find a third client and make a run for the Trios Championship? Because wasn't there a scene in the trailer?
Or forget a third client. Maybe they just team up with Famous B himself and make a run at the Trios titles.
That would be a very unique team. And that would be a team, honestly, I think I'd root for it because I'm loving Famous B right now. He is so good. But do you remember the scene in the trailer? Unless I'm mixing things up, which I'm prone to do. I thought there was a scene in the trailer where Famous B was posing with some kind of sword or something, and he was looking into a sword.
You're thinking of Daga.
Was that? I know Daga did some sort of, but I thought Famous B had something with the weapon as well in the trailer. Because I know what you're talking about.
Not that I know of, or not that I remember, at least.
I have to go back and watch the trailer again when we're done here, because we always talk about it so much, but I could really do for a rewatch, because I could have sworn Famous B did something, and we're like, oh man, what is this? But yeah, it's very interesting that he's gunning for Texano, which, I mean, makes sense. Texano's got the muscle. He's got the credibility from AAA, even though he really hasn't done anything in Lucha Underground yet. And I think it could work, certainly. And, you got Dr. Wagner Jr. on one end. You got Texano on the other. And I love it, too, because Dr. Wagner Jr. on the one end is like this big legend in Mexico, right? Like this big deal, like akin to Blue Demon Jr. And Texano on the other end, he's like
basically the real-life Juan Cena.
Yeah, there you go. And you look at Texano on the other end, like youngest AAA champion ever. And
that's what I thought you were talking about, Texano.
No, I mentioned Dr. Wagner Jr. versus what I'm saying. Like, I love that Famous B has this stacked unit.
Yeah. I mean, Wagner is definitely a legend, but like I was saying, Texano is like Juan. Like he's like the Mexican John Cena. Right.
So I love that Famous B is like trying to make like this stacked clientele, like this whole faction of making people famous. And the irony is like
they're pretty much building up team guys who are amazing and over in AAA, but aren't over in Lucha Underground.
Right. And that's why I'm going to help them get there. And it just works on so many levels. So yeah, great cinematic.
All right. Up next, we had our second match of the night. But actually, I did want to address something. I've had a lot of people saying stuff, and then I went on Twitter and confirmed it. There is actually going to be a few months break during season 3 of Lucha Underground. I guess episode 19, which is on January 11th, so in 2 weeks, they're going to be going on a break. 3 months. I don't know if that's the number that's set in stone, but they're calling the season 3 episode 19, which is on January 11th. They're calling that the mid-season finale. So that, it's going to suck, but the timing is kind of convenient for us. We're going to be going back to reviewing Raw and SmackDown just after that. So it's very unfortunate that Lucha Underground is going to be leaving us for a period of time starting on, I guess, January 11th. But again, we will be going back to reviewing Raws and SmackDowns as soon as the Royal Rumble concludes, and that's on Sunday the 29th. So that'll be just a brief glimpse into our future schedule. I just wanted to bring that up. I think they said something about that on the show, but we might have missed it, or they just didn't say anything on the show and it was just a tweet that people were reacting to. But they did tweet out that the season 3 mid-season finale, January 11th episode, which is episode 19. So we're still getting our Mac Mundo match next week and all that stuff, but a week after that is going to be the mid-season finale. It sucks, But let's bring it back and talk about the second match of the night tonight. PJ Black and Jack Evans. And actually, before we get to that, Matt Striker tried to ask Vampiro about what's going on with Puma, but Vampiro shut that shit down.
Yeah, he was like, more or less, that is none of your goddamn business. He almost seemed angry that Matt Striker even had the audacity to ask, and quite frankly, I can't really say I blame Vampiro. But yeah, he did not want any part of that. He's just letting everybody know, look, when it's your turn to know, you'll know. For now, it's my freaking business. So, hey, no qualms about that.
Absolutely. So then we had a match, second match of the night. PJ Black and Jack Evans versus Son of Havoc and Angelico. Unfortunately, Angelico did get legitimately injured in this match. He had, I believe, a fracture and a dislocated elbow. And he has actually posted on Instagram. He tore up his favorite suit that day, or one of his favorite suits, and that it just wasn't a good day. I've been trying to ask him how his elbow is now, but he hasn't responded to me. Get well soon, I guess, on Helico if you haven't already recovered. But yeah, that sucks. The match ended up getting cut short because of it. Pinned Son of Havoc.
Yeah, guys, for me, like I said on live reactions, I'm cool with a Worldwide Underground win, but even I never like it when somebody gets legitimately injured. I, too, like you, Ash, and I tweeted out it on Helico, and he did like my tweet, so I think we're cool. I said, look, all jokes aside, man, I really do hope you get well soon. I was sincerely looking forward to him and Mundo feuding. Like, I know I made my jokes, but I love playing it up. I'm having so much fun with the title reign. And I was so looking forward to that feud because I know those two guys would have brought the best out of each other. And on Helico, and see that is the one downside of Lucha Underground. It isn't even really anything to do with Lucha Underground. It's just I really feel so connected to so many of the performers, and so many of them are so talented. And especially when I think about like the Evil Lises and the Angelicos that could give so much and do so much, and they just keep getting cut off at the pass, either because of an injury or this thing or that thing. I just want to see them do their thing. I want to see them make their mark and kill it and do everything. So yeah, this injury is heartbreaking because I was salivating to really see this play out. And obviously, of course, seeing somebody's health diminish like this is never a good thing. So I do hope he gets better soon. The match, for what it was good, but like you said, that they called an audible. Angelico got injured, not really much you can do. Worldwide Underground gets the win, and yeah, I just hope Angelico makes it back soon. I don't know if this will be like an Evil East thing where he'll be a part of season 3 just down the road when he's through all this, or if he's just done, which that would really suck given that he just came back and said, oh, Mundo's going to need an Undertaker, and they're going to have a lot of work to do on that. But knowing Lucha Underground, though, and again, just trying to stick with that TWitWoW creed of, finding positivity in everything, because he got injured in the context of a Worldwide Underground match, he can pin that on them now, too. So then when Angelico comes back again, he will be pissed. And I'd even like to see him really take those guys down one by one. Or if there's not even a Worldwide Underground when he comes back, just focus all that hate on Mundo. Gold or not, that's a feud I want to see. I think those two guys could really have Match of the Year contenders for my money. So, yeah, the sooner Angelico gets back, the better the Lucha Underground product will be for it. And we wish him well.
Absolutely. Yeah, man, I completely agree. The whole idea of him and Mundo not being able to do their feud this season is really disappointing. I do kind of have hopes that he recovers before the end of the season, but considering he hasn't been answering anybody about the current status of his elbow, makes me think the worst, and maybe he hasn't even recovered by now, much less by the end of the season 3 taping. So
yeah,
it's very unfortunate. It sucks. But injuries do happen in this business, and all we can hope is that when Angelico does come back, that he's stronger and better than ever, and then it doesn't happen again. So let's move on to our next segment, which was Sexy Star being unreasonable and demanding a match with Mariposa because she wants to punish her for something that she didn't even do.
Yeah, I mean, I've already kind of addressed that. I feel like Sexy is just very angry. She's being messed with. I think the responses she's giving is exactly whoever, her antagonizer wants. They're like, yeah, I want to rattle her. I want to get her all riled up. This way she's not thinking clearly, which she clearly isn't. And I love, too, because Sexy Star said she didn't even want a match. She just wanted to give Mariposa a good old-fashioned beating, she said. And you know Dario loves that. I think he loves putting Sexy Star and Mariposa in the ring together because he knows, like, it gets a response out of Sexy that seems almost antithetical to her character because it's all about the love and the strength and overcoming. And yet when it comes to Mariposa, it just really brings out that darker side of Sexy Star, that side that, you know, like, yeah, I do want to hurt her, and I'm not going to stop hurting her. And so, yeah, we're getting that next week and should be a great match. I mean, you know, again, No Mas was, I think, the best match of season 2. They did so well there. And now they're doing it again. And even though it's a standard match, it'll still be something really good. I'm excited for it.
Yep. Let's kind of reignite the magic that we got with No Mas between these two. That'd be wonderful.
Absolutely.
All right. We kind of had this is kind of the closing stretch now. We get to what was supposed to be the final match of the night, Cage versus Texano in the 4th of their best of 5 series. Obviously, Cage is up 2-1 going into this match. And this was a really quick match because Texano kind of won with an underhanded tactic. He exposed a turnbuckle, and then when Cage went up on the top rope on the side or on the corner that the turnbuckle was exposed on, Texano took advantage, yanked Cage's leg out from underneath him, dropped him head first onto the exposed turnbuckle, and then immediately powerbombed him for the win. But Dario Cueto had different ideas. He wasn't going to let the night end on such a sour note.
No, he was not. He came out and he said, Cage, Texano, this series you've been having has been freaking amazing. And, you know, the believers give a big pop for that. And he says, you know, we're going to conclude it right now. And I love that so much because my thing is when this series, like, first started and, like, you know, Cage would get his first 2 wins, and then specifically when Texano got his first win, there seemed like big gaps between the matches because you had Aztec Warfare and then you had, you know, Battle of the Bulls, like all this stuff going on. And then they're like, you know what, we're finally getting back to the series. And not only that, because of all the time that it took just to even get here, we're not even going to give it any more time to breathe. We're doing it tonight. And you know what? I'm totally okay with that because there was such spacing in between matches. I'm like, yeah, you want to wrap this up? Let's wrap it up because we know what this is really about. This isn't about, oh, 2 great guys, you know, in 5 matches. I mean, yeah, Cage is amazing. I've sung his praises many times in this podcast, as have you. And Texano, I felt like, had his best outing here ever since he showed up in Lucha Underground, really. I thought this was an amazing performance by him. His best match yet in Lucha Underground for me. I was thoroughly engrossed in this. But the big thing about this was the prize. We all knew what the prize was. We were in on it, and we just wanted to see the recipient of it, like who was going to claim this ultimate opportunity. That's what this is about. So I really appreciated the pacing they put into this tonight. And as far as the final bout goes, what did you think of it, Ashton?
My God, I don't know company other than Lucha Underground that could get me to enjoy a death match sort of match the way that Lucha Underground does. And the way Lucha Underground does it, it all comes down to story. Lucha Underground tells stories that the blow-off calls for this kind of match. And when they do it right, which is pretty much every time, it's phenomenal. And this, Ace the Skylord in chat just said this is Texano's best match in Lucha Underground. I can't disagree with that. This was a phenomenal showing from Texano, and it really was all Texano because pretty much the only thing Cage did for a vast majority of this match was sell. He was just selling pretty much the whole time, taking the beating from Texano because he took at least 15 minutes just to recover from their first match tonight where he lost because of the turnbuckle and the powerbomb. So he spent, you know, and by the time the blood had finally dried, that was kind of the point when Cage became Cage and started powering through things and countering things and hitting Texano with these, you know, these super high impact slams and strikes that we're so used to seeing from Cage.
Oh, yeah, dude, there was so much right with this match. I don't even know where to start. First and foremost, it kind of touched on a point you made that it was somewhat like deathmatch-esque with like anything goes and cage bleeding. Why I feel like this works was because you didn't get like the broken glass or the gasoline or the thumbtacks. You just had a very desperate Texano. And I feel like that's all you needed. Like, he bit Cage's wound not once but twice. And he used his bull rope, which wasn't out of the ordinary because he always comes out with the damn thing. A steel chair. I think maybe a paint can got involved in a speaker, but really what it came down to was Texano smelled blood, literally and figuratively. You know, he exposed the turnbuckle in match 3. And then, you know, knowing that it were match 4, rather, excuse me. And then in match 5, when he figured, you know, I have the chance to close, Cage is bleeding, I'm the aggressor. You could really see that desperation on display, especially, and I feel like it worked so well with the preceding Famous B cinematic, where Famous B calls him out. You know, then I feel like that gives Texano kind of a chip on his shoulder, like, oh, I've got to prove him wrong. You know, these are my people, whether they like it or not. I'm going to win this ultimate opportunity. And then we get to Cage. Now, I know I've talked about Cage extensively already, but you know what? It bears repeating because the guy's killing it right now. I love, and I said this on live reactions, any other promotion, if you walked in the door looking like Cage does, like the Swolverine, as he calls himself, you get handed the championship. If not in the first 6 months, definitely in your quote-unquote rookie year. I mean, it happened with Lesnar. It's happened with other guys. It's kind of the precedent. With Lucha Underground, Cage hasn't even, well, he won Gift of the Gods, to be fair. So he has been a champion there, but that was a championship to get to the bigger championship, which he has yet to win.
Yeah, it was like a Money in the Bank briefcase that he cashed in and didn't, like, you know, he didn't capitalize on his opportunity there. So it's, you know, that, to me, the definition of how you book a strong babyface in wrestling, they need to fail. They need to know what failure tastes like so that when they finally do succeed, it at that point. Because if somebody just succeeds and succeeds and succeeds and succeeds and, oh, there's an obstacle, be a shame if someone overcame it, like with Cena and Roman Reigns all the time, it gets old, it gets boring, and if the fans don't feel like they need to cheer for you in order for you to succeed, they stop cheering for you, they start booing you, they start resenting you. And that's exactly what Lucha Underground is avoiding with the way that they're writing and booking Cage, and I love it.
I'm telling you, dude, and this is not hyperbole, and anybody who says it is, honestly, I respectfully disagree, because I really feel like it's gotten to this point. When Cage wins the championship, assuming it would be in 2017, I mean, you've got real potential for Mark-Out Moment of the Year, because it'll have felt so earned at this point that how can you not help but react to it? I mean, I don't say this because, you know, John responds. I'm not saying it because of that, but it's even so brilliant that Johnny Mundo, the guy who he won the feud against, Cage won that feud. He got to the world title before Cage did. So if you're a Cage fan, you're like, what the hell is it going to take? Like, this is a guy that he beat, and he still made it to the world title before Cage did. Like, that is legitimate struggle to me. When you've even seen people that you know objectively that you're better than in the context of a certain feud or match or whatever, make it to the pinnacle before you do. The way they have written Cage, and again, just look at the man. He looks like he should be given the championship on day freaking 1. Hasn't done it.
And he walked
seasons.
in expecting to be given the championship on day freaking 1. Remember, the first month of him being in Lucha Underground, he immediately targeted Puma, and then he walked into Cueto's office and said, "You should name me your champion." And Cueto was like, "Oh, believe me, Cage, if I could dream up a champion, it would look like you, but I can't do that." It was exactly what you just described, but it didn't happen, even though they teased that he wanted it to happen.
I'm looking back on it now. I wish I could have seen it for what it was, but it makes it all the better that we're discussing it now, because it's like they're openly acknowledging this trope, like, oh, you look like you do, you perform like you do, of course you're going to be world champion. And they completely invert it by having him never taste world championship gold, or really any gold that wasn't meant as a transitional title like Gift of the Gods was. And hell, he didn't even win that right out of the gate because, you know, freaking Chavo screwed him out of the medallion and everything.
Chavo outsmarted him.
Yeah, so even when Cage wins, he has to work for it. It's an effort. It's an expenditure.
Yeah.
And I love that. And again, though, it makes sense because he's a baby face. And that's what infuriates me about face Reigns. It's not just the idea he'd be better as a heel, which I still believe is 250% true. It's the idea that he could work as a face if he knew what struggle was, getting back to your point. Cage has known more struggle than really, I think, any Technico in Lucha Underground, which is absurd. Again, when you look at the man, he looks like he could snap anybody like a twig with the flex of his pinky, and yet he still has not been able to attain that success. And then when you go to this match, bringing it full circle, and you see he's bleeding. Oh, what were we gonna say?
I was just going to say, I feel like struggle is a common theme among Technicos in Lucha Underground, though. So I don't know if it's fair to say Cage has faced more of it than anyone else. But what I would say is that any given baby face, any given Technico in Lucha Underground has almost definitely faced more struggle than pretty much any given baby face or Technico or whatever you want to call it in WWE.
Oh, certainly. And then, bringing it full circle, getting back to this final match, you've got him bleeding like a freaking, faucet, just pouring that blood. Texano being unrelenting on the wound. And he was never really, up until the very tail end, able to get into that second gear because, I'm kind of bleeding everywhere and barely hanging on to my consciousness. And Texano is just laying into him. And this is the Texano that I've really been waiting for. Because I would hear, now, I don't watch a lot of AAA. I know you don't either. But, we would kind of hear, he's really good, like he's done all this stuff. And I never really saw it. And again, I'm not about to be the president of his fan club because of this one match, but it was a really good match that he had to carry a lot of the load of because him being the heel, he had to be the aggressor for most of it. Again, going back to those dynamics, Cage wasn't going to come in bleeding like he was and doing the kind of things that he did in Battle of the Bulls last week. Where he's like power bombing and power slamming in an electric chair position and F5ing. Like, you're not going to see that when he's bleeding the way that he is. So Texano really had the burden of, man, I gotta hit hard, and I gotta make these people really hate my ass. And he did it. And then when Cage comes back and hits what I saw somebody call in chat, and I wonder if that's what they're calling in Lucha Underground, the screw you driver, he gets the win. And it's a great moment. It's a moment that feels earned. Even when waiting, well, wouldn't this prize make Texano a more interesting character? At the end of the day, I'm glad it went to Cage, and I know you are too. Especially seeing him go through all of this, that just makes me all the more intrigued to see him reap the benefits of the prize.
And especially because they kind of fixed the Texano problem before this match with the famous B thing. Because my whole thing with Texano was, well, Cage is already interesting, so he doesn't really need any more, but you can give Texano this. We ended up finding out that it was a gauntlet, but we knew that it was an item possessed by an Aztec god. You can give that to Texano, and suddenly Texano is also interesting. So it's really just, adding to the interesting characters in Lucha Underground, but they still managed to do that while still having Cage win by just having Famous B show up and be like, hey, Texano, I want you to be my client. You know what I mean?
And can I just say, too, and I wish I would have said it at the appropriate segment, but now that we're kind of rehashing that,
and by the way, I'm seeing on here, he calls the Steiner screwdriver the drill claw.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. The drill
I'm
claw.
also seeing it listed as the Lucha Destroyer, but that's Pentagon's flip power pile driver, so we can't call it that.
Right. But yeah, I mean, and just kind of getting back on that, I'm so happy too. Even if I'm not a big Texano fan, like there is a proper way to run a wrestling promotion, and I love that a guy that's so embroiled in this series like Texano has been isn't going to be shortchanged. It's not like, okay, you lose this match and then you're just going to be in a standard match in a few weeks. Like they're already teasing the next thing for him to do, a lot like they did with Sexy Star, because you knew, hey, okay, this feud between you and Mundo, it's coming to an end. We're wrapping it up. So we're going to lay the groundwork for your next thing immediately before your current thing is even over yet. I love that. They've got pacing down to a science, because already now that Texano's lost this, you can't even really sit on it too long or marinate on it too long, because you have to remember, he was approached by Famous B earlier, and what's going to happen with that? It's great. And now we're going to have more than enough time to breathe all this in and let it all marinate, because unfortunately, their mid-season finale and everything. So I'm just glad they're getting all the pieces together while they can.
Exactly. I love it, man. This was great. And then, of course, once Cage did make the comeback and pick up the win with the drill claw, which is what I'm going to be referring to it from now on. However, Cueto says, all right, you've earned the ultimate opportunity, but I can't reveal it in front of the people because I don't think that they'll be able to comprehend just how awesome it is. So I need you to come into my office to receive the ultimate opportunity. And Cage follows him, but then before we go straight to the office, we do get a preview because next week we are getting Mac versus Mundo.
Yes, the Mac will finally be able to cash in on the opportunity here into Battle of the Bulls and having the privilege of losing to Johnny Mundo and his mythical abs. So I'm very much looking forward to it.
Absolutely. But then we go into Cueto's office, and, I feel like I've been talking a lot tonight, John, so I'm going to let you take this one.
Well, Cage goes into Cueto's office, and I love that Cage is, to the point, because he knows what he's been through, and he's tired of games. He's like, so what did I win? And Cueto's like, gesture into the box. He's like, well, what is it? And Cueto's like, open it. And, we do find out that it's a gauntlet. And Cage is rightfully so, based on appearances. Are you freaking kidding me? This is what I won. I think he was expecting, as, we all were at the time until we got clued in, a Lucha Underground Championship opportunity. And he even says, I'm not a Renaissance Fair kind of guy. I don't want it. Pretty much hard pass. And he goes to walk away. And Cueto's like, wait, Cage. Look, if you don't want it, that's fine. But can you just indulge me? Can you just put it on? And Cage, he concedes this. He's like, okay. And the moment he puts it on, you get that thundering sound effect. Yep. And I think you even see an electrical charge going through it or whatever. And then he immediately seizes Dario by the throat, lifts him up. And he's like, you know what, Dario? On second thought, I think I'll keep it. And then he just sets Dario down and he walks out with it. But this is the brilliance of Lucha Underground, though. And I'm actually glad you gave me the ball on this one because I don't want to emphasize Cage. I don't want to emphasize the gauntlet, even though, again, those are points worthy of discussion, certainly. What I want to emphasize is Cueto's reaction when he's alone in his office. Because at the last second before the camera cuts, his eyes tilt upward towards the gods, and he just gives that knowing smile. Because, Cage got his prize, and the first thing he did with it was manhandle Dario. But Dario and, what's the boss's name? The people in the limo?
Well, Delgado's Lord.
Delgado's
I don't know the guy's name yet.
Yeah, Delgado and then Delgado's Lord. That was the name I was trying to think of. They all conversed about it, and he's like, oh, they'll be a great host. We know what's coming for Cage. What I'm curious about is if that gauntlet is, possessed by the power of a god, are the effects going to be, simmering? Is Cage going to feel autonomous and like Cage for the first little bit, but then the changes start to occur? I'm wondering, the dynamics of this gauntlet, how everything's going to play
it's
out.
Almost like the gauntlet is the way to transfer vessel, but it's a slow burn so that it's the vessel wants it before the transfer happens so that it's not a forced thing,
I hate to really show all of my nerdiness right now, but I'm going to because I love this segment so much. This whole thing with Cage and his gauntlet, I know you don't watch the show, Ash. I think you told somebody that you were meaning to, but I have extensively. It made me think of Adventure Time with Finn's grass sword, because I forget when exactly it happened or the circumstances, but he ends up getting this blade of grass growing out of his hand because one of his old swords broke, and that became his new sword. But the thing is, the blade of grass had a mind of its own. And Finn in the future, he ends up losing that arm and getting a robotic arm because the grass sword just became, autonomous, kind of ripped away from Finn, whatever. I wonder if it's going to be the same thing with the gauntlet. Cage is going to have to do battle with this god internally to maintain control of this gauntlet before it overwhelms him. I can definitely see something like that happening. Maybe he even notices weird things going on, it's trembling or trying to hurt somebody that maybe Cage doesn't want to hurt, or if he does, maybe not that excessively. And he's like, whoa, wait a minute, what's going on? I'm in charge here. And then they start having that kind of battle of wills where Cage...
I don't think... What I will say is I don't think the gauntlet itself is sentient. So I don't think it's going to be sentient. Right. But what I do think might happen is Cage might start having like blackouts where he goes on violent rampages and destroys people, and then like someone will confront him about it and be like, dude, you just beat the living hell out of Killshot. What did he do to deserve that? And he's just like, wait, what? What are you talking about? I didn't touch Killshot. I don't even know where Killshot is right now. And then like Killshot, you see, and he's got like a black eye and like a swollen lip, and he's just like really messed up. Just like, damn, dude, what happened? And he said, you happened. And he's just like, he has no clue. And it turns out that like those blackouts are instances of the god gaining power in the body.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, dude, that is a terrifying thought. And again, we return to something that you and I were talking about very early on. Who the hell is going to be able to beat Cage now? Because whether he's fully aware of this power,
I mean, we know Matanza could beat him with the gift of the gods, which gives you the power of the gods, and now he's got the literal power of a god, so maybe that's like a break-even situation. Like it's like he's got the power of the gift of the gods, only it's all the time now, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, to me, dude, because I get what you're saying, and Matanza did win that match, but that was probably one of his least dominant wins because Cage was holding his own virtually the entire time.
Oh, yeah,
and
absolutely.
Now that he's got this, that might be enough to tip the scales. And what scares me is Cage already, like, sees Dario by the throat, lifting him up, and he seemed perfectly, like, aware of all that. So we know that the effects are just beginning. Cage by himself with that kind of power is dangerous. Cage not even, like, again, being possessed by the god as it slowly takes over, you know, with these blackouts to your point, that's even more dangerous. Either way, it's an outcome where if you're the rest of the Lucha Underground roster, you're 32 flavors of fucked because you're like, wait, which would I rather prefer? Cage when he's fully knowledgeable of what he's doing but still has all that power behind him, or Cage when somebody else is in the driver's seat? I don't know what's more terrifying, and that's.
I think somebody else in the driver's seat is a lot scarier because they have no conscience. Where at least we know that Cage is capable, and maybe not in season 1, but at least recently Cage has learned to kind of control his temper.
Yeah. That, and you know something? I'm so glad you mentioned season 1 because I wonder how much, like, in terms of, like, the personality and traits of Cage and everything, this Gauntlet is going to play on. Because in season 1, I feel like commentary even made it a point to note, like, yeah, he's a hothead. Yeah, he can get worked up. Yeah, this and that. I wonder how much it's going to play back. Like, if the Gauntlet kind of feeds on emotion in a way or gets stronger with it, gets stronger, the stronger the emotional response of the wearer is. You know, I just really want to know the whole workings of the Gauntlet now that Cage is really wearing it and wielding it with all of its terrifying power. So, great stuff.
Man. Whew! We've got a godly Cage on the rampage, and that rhymed. And I don't know how to finish this, so let's just move on.
Absolutely. High spots and low shots. You know what? I'm going to say that my low shot is MIl Muertes. Because, bro, you are so dominant, but, man, when people fuck with you, you just do not know what to do. You have got so many problems right now, and, well, at least for the moment, Katrina doesn't seem to be one. She's the only one kind of on your side at the moment. So, yeah, MIl Muertes, definitely my low shot. Cannot catch a break. Lost to Jeremiah Crane, and he got beat down by Puma Dark. Who's your low shot?
Ooh, that's going to be a tough one to top. I think I'm going to have to go with Texano because it's like he had this huge advantage. He was one up. Or not one up, but he was one up for the night, not on the series, in that, he had the big advantage over Cage after beating him the first time. And he was so dominant throughout the entire match, but it's like you just toyed with Cage for too long, and Cage did what Cage does, and he managed to pull off the comeback and win. And Texano missed out on this power gauntlet that we now see Cage possessing.
Yeah, buddy.
Or being possessed by.
yeah, and that ain't even a joke. That's looking really bad for Cage, but we'll see. Yeah, my highs, and that's the funny thing too, because with all that discussion, I don't even know if I can in good conscience give Cage my high spot because, yeah, he won, but did you win something that's ultimately going to mean that you lose? Because who really won here? I think the big winners, and actually, yeah, that is going to be my high spot. I'm going to do something a bit different. My high spot's Dario Cueto because he got what he wanted. And that's probably why he had the same match, like the 5th match happened in the same night. He wanted to hurry it up. He knew what this was all about. And Dario Cueto is the biggest winner here, and he didn't lose a drop of blood doing it, unlike Cage. He's got the gauntlet on somebody. That god's going to take over Cage, and what a fine vessel for that god to have. So Cueto is the biggest winner here. He is my high spot tonight.
Yeah, I can't even argue with that. But I do have to come up with a high spot. So what I'm going to say is, despite the potential repercussions, a power gauntlet is a power gauntlet is a power gauntlet, and I'm going with Cage for my high spot because he is the only person tonight who won a best-of-5 series, an ultimate opportunity, and a goddamn power gauntlet.
Hey, brother, I can't argue with that. You know, we'll see how it all plays out for Cage, but as if he couldn't get any more interesting, his stock gets upped again. I even said on live reactions, guys, 2017, I think, is going to be a hell of a year for Cage. And if you haven't invested in him yet, I feel sorry for you, but there's still time because I think he's getting ready to really blow up if he hasn't already. So with that said, Ashton, do you have any concluding remarks on Lucha Underground from tonight?
I don't think so, brother. Let's close this thing out.
All right. This has been Lucha Underground. This has been TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John. That's my co-owner and commentary action. Guys, be sure to comment, subscribe, and like the video. The more likes you give the video, the more likely we are to be the top search result for Lucha Underground reviews on YouTube. And you know when you're the best at what you do, the top is the only place that you belong. So guys, in all seriousness, if you enjoyed the discussions we had, if you enjoyed our excitement about Gauntlet, Cage, and Dark Puma, and this and that, please leave a like. It helps us out big time, and it's greatly appreciated. Now, just want to address a few things. First and foremost, the final reminder, there will be no NXT review tonight. It is pretty much the entire show from Osaka, Japan. They already showed the main event, I want to say 2 weeks ago. We really see no point, so no NXT review tonight. That'll be, you know, we'll go back to that next week when they have new content out. So no NXT to look forward to. This is it for the night. But that said, you guys already know all the amazing stuff to check out because of the amazing backgrounds my co-owner commentary makes. 2 things I want to plug. First and foremost, because it's the most imminent, Q&A. Our last Q&A of 2016 is in 2 days, December 30th. Last Q&A for the year. So you've got 2 days now. The window's very small, but it's there. There's just a crack in there for you to get any questions you have last minute in there for Q&A. I think this will be the last plug I'll be able to make of it too, because we got no content coming Thursday. So my last plea to you guys, if you haven't submitted questions yet, please wait for this video to process and leave a comment if you want. You can submit your questions that way. Go on Twitter. I have a pinned tweet on my profile for people that want to ask questions there. And if you are going to tweet quick questions at me, please specify if it's just for me or for both, because oftentimes I'll just assume that they're both because that's the safe way to assume. But yeah, get your questions there or tweet at Ashton if you just want to make sure they're at him. Tweet at us. Go on the Facebook page. If you do visit the TWitWoW Facebook page, please leave us a like. It helps us out tremendously. And you can message us there on the Facebook page. Get your questions in. You've got 2 days left. Everybody is permitted up to 5 questions. Doesn't mean you have to use all 5. You know, you don't have to force yourself to come up with questions if you don't think they're of quality. If you have 3 quality questions, that's better than 5 meh questions. So by no means do you have to use all 5, but 5 is your limit. How you divvy them up is also entirely up to you. You can do all 5 for both of us, or if you just choose to really show favoritism, you could do all 5 for just one of us and leave the other person out in the cold. I might cry about it a little bit, but, you know, that's just what happens. But, yeah, I mean, get your questions in. It's a lot of fun. We talk a lot of diverse topics. I'm very excited for this Q&A, last one in 2016, so if you have not yet, please get your questions in. Now, last thing I want to plug, the Patreon. It has been freaking great lately for the Patreon. Please, guys, we are now rewarding our donors with fan-requested reviews, live reactions, and the premium package. If you're really feeling generous, we will do both a review of, well, live reactions and a review, I should say, of a show of your choosing. Go on our Patreon, check out our price points, our specifications, get the whole rundown there. We've done 3 Patreon requested videos. 2 of them were reviews, and we just recently did our first Patreon requested live reactions. It was a New Japan show, the last 3 matches of King of Pro Wrestling 2016. It was fantastic, very fun live reactions. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. So if you're thinking of a live reactions, that shows your template. Go and watch that. See if you've got a good feel for it. If you're thinking a review, we have done Survivor Series 2002, the show with the very first Elimination Chamber match, and Halloween Havoc 1997, which has a lot of great rant material, and I thought that was a really fun review too. Or if you want both, then watch all the videos and say, yeah, a premium package is right for me, and make that donation, guys. It means the world to us. Seeing you guys really put your money in the Patreon and be able to request reviews. It's such a fun and intimate experience, I think, between us and our fans, and we're just so grateful for you guys, and it's worked out tremendously. So if you're really feeling it, if you're thinking, man, I really want to know what John and Ashton think about this show, well, now you can, thanks to Patreon. So go and make a donation if you feel like it. Guys, those are the 2 plugs. I'm done prattling on. Again, no NXT review, which means we will see you again on Friday for Q&A. Can't wait to see how many questions total we got going on. Should be a fun time. And then Sunday, at 6, we got our award show going on. It is going to be a long freaking affair. Very excited to unveil all of the award recipients on my end. I know Ashton is as well. So 2 really big videos coming Friday and then Sunday. So if you're just a TWitWoW fanatic, take a deep seat because the ride's just getting started. Guys, that's it. We hope you enjoyed the review tonight. A good rest of the night to all of you. Love you guys. And until then, tune in and peace out.